So welcome to the TAD Summit podcast. Our focus is going to be, we'll kick off with a section on truth in telecoms, and then we'll have a section focused on a member of the TADS community. So that's the format. Because of, well, I'll let Johnny go into it. We're going to be quite lightweight on the truth in telecoms. Our focus will be on Thomas. So I'm going to let both introduce themselves. So Thomas, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Thomas Howe, and I'm the CTO of a company called Strawlid. I've been a communications developer my whole life. My father worked in a communications house as well, so I grew up in the art. And early in my career, I was at companies like Polycom and PictureTel, and I was involved with the first DSL chipset. These days, I work for Strawlid, and we help people get into new cars. And my job is to make sure we communicate with them beautifully.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Thomas. And then over to, well, no, should I use Johnny or Giovanni?
I mean, my real name is Giovanni. People call me Johnny. People call me Gianni. People call me cease and desist. It depends on who you're talking to. So you can call me Johnny, I guess. Geo, I get a lot of Geos. Yeah.
So please introduce yourself.
So I'm Giovanni, Johnny Tyrone. I'm about 25, I don't know, 25, 30 years about 25 years in the telecom industry, and with breaks in different verticals, bringing different products and companies to market, infomercial world, and as well as prepaid calling card world. But my main career was in the prepaid calling card world. So back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, I was probably the second largest distributor in the United States as far as moving calling card products. Then I went through a large bankruptcy. Actually, me and all our distributors went through a very large bankruptcy. And then I became a little bit of a restructuring expert in 2004 and through 2008, where the calling card industry kind of was imploding. So kind of went to Harvard 101 of how to restructure companies, and then somehow got involved in the company called Irish Wireless. Funny story where the CEO, former CEO, a guy named Peter Renfred, brilliant guy, so ahead of his time, and somehow or another ended up getting in my hands. I cleaned it up, restructured it, and then I got punched in the face by Cineverse, and a guy named Jeff Gordon, who tried to buy up the entire industry. I think he's working in the bookstore now. Cineverse is still trying to pay off his debt. And then I entered into the world of Cineverse, and they basically tried to terminate my agreement because there's only 3 messaging hubs in the United States. One was Cineverse. The other one was SAP, which is now Cinch. And then you had Irish Wireless, which was the smaller of the 3. Our main customer was Metro PCS and a lot of the rural telephone companies in the US. So we were the smaller of the 3, and proceeded to file a communication doc suit up in the Rocket Docket. That got kicked out down to an antitrust case. I'm getting text messages.
Yeah, don't worry.
Like crazy over here. It got kicked down to an antitrust case down in Tampa, and basically got all the way to a motion to dismiss, and basically won and got new agreements. And with those new agreements, I led a management buyout of Tintec. And then I went to Tintec University from 2000. I think I met Thorsten in 2014, and still part of that world. So along the way, learned quite a bit about messaging, quite a bit about, which I couldn't spell when I took over Irish Wireless. And I literally got new agreements and assigned them to Tintec, and then kind of went and played golf for a couple of years, and then kind of came back. And because they got embroiled into a big legal fight with Cineverse, which I can actually speak freely of, but I don't want to take up too much time on that right now because nobody really cares. We'll get to that at the show, because exactly. I think Cineverse in the middle of the ecosystem, and you keep bringing up why Twilio paid $750 million to Cineverse. They really didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation for another day. Although I think the CEO of Twilio said, we like to help our partners and give them $750 million for a minority stake in their company with our shareholders' money. Anyhow, but that's Twilio, and we still owe them gratitude as far as creating an entire industry.
Yep, exactly. With TED Summit, we have a no BS policy. That's been there since the beginning of TED Summit back in 2013. And it's, the focus has generally been on marketing, because there's just, a lot of things are claimed and then just go quiet and, fail. And what we try to do is shine a light on all the marketing, BS. And with Johnny's help, we're extending that to all the business and strategic, industrial machinations, particularly around carriers and their old boy networks, and creating these dysfunctional entities that are not in the best interests of innovation or the or the general public. And it doesn't matter whether it's US or international, carriers copy each other. So what we're seeing here, I see, is an embryo that could grow across the industry, and we want to shine a light on it and hopefully help the industry do what's right rather than what's best for the carriers. So anyway, that's the background. That's why we have Johnny here, and we'll have this feature on truth in telecoms. We're not going to go into depth on this episode, so he doesn't end up in a German jail eating sausage.
Trust me, I ain't going to jail.
But you have been threatened. But anyway,
I think I was convicted, actually.
Oh, that's true. It was a conviction.
Not even knowing. So, but anyhow, that's another story. And
that's another story, and we'll have fun with that.
The Calera people, I've been threatened in letters, and it's not. I come from the prepaid calling card world in New York. I've been threatened quite a few times in my life, and we have something called the First Amendment.
Yep.
In this country. Yeah.
We'll keep this interactive, but please, Thomas, introduce what's happening with vCon, why it's important, what's happening with Strolid, and point is, we just want to have an interactive discussion and help Johnny understand the really cool stuff you're doing and why it's important to the industry.
Yeah, for sure. Great, thank you. So Strolid is a company that sells cars, and we're an inside sales organization. And I came to be the CTO of Strolid about 2 years ago after leaving Mindful, which was sold to Medallia. And the reason I came to Strolid, which is the first time outside of telecom for me, was because the owner and my business partner, Vinny, and I really recognized that Strolid was a really great sandbox. And the sandbox was filled with customer conversations. We talk to over 100,000 customers every month who are looking for new cars. And so we understood that we had a lot of value in the conversations that we had, but we really didn't have any infrastructure to understand them, to leverage them, et cetera. And so one of the first things we did as we started looking at the problem was, and it occurred to me, that we've done a lot of good work in telecom around functionality, making phone calls, sending messages, billing for it. But we have done very little good work in the data that we're creating as we do that. And I mean the exact data. And so we came to this idea that the vCon was the definition of what a conversation was, basically a PDF for conversations. So inside the vCon are the recordings of a conversation, which you would expect to see, but it also has the identification of who was in the conversation. And those two things together, as Eric Lagerwey might say, give us a CDR for the next generation, right? Now, that's half of the vCon. The other half of the vCon gives you the context of what the conversation was about. So if we were going to take this conversation and make it into a file, we would have maybe a presentation I would be giving, so that would be part of the context of it. And the last part, which I think is the most important part, is the vCon tracks and allows you to give that conversation to AI and for other systems, and so that it will track which AI used your stuff. So one of the fundamental issues with AI is once it gets the likeness of you, it could deep fake you. There's all kinds of personal identifiable information in a conversation. And so that last part of the VCon tracks that. And so that whole VCon itself, my slang is robot food. It's really designed to take a conversation and then to apply analysis to it in a way which is safe for the people who are in the conversation, but also appropriate for the robots. And so that's the VCon, and that's basically the first thing we did at Strawlid. So the VCon itself, just to tell you, is we now have a working group at the IETF. If you're unfamiliar with the IETF, we're the guys who recommend protocols for the internet. So if you used email or the web or HTTP or any of those things, any of those three-letter acronyms, it's an IETF protocol. VCon, VCON is ours. We've just started. We're trying to improve our charter now, and so we're really excited for that and our involvement with the IETF. And that's the first part that we did.
Excellent, excellent. And
Yeah.
so you've got a working draft now for the VCon specification within the IETF, is that correct?
Yep. So we have 2 drafts in. We're actually putting a third in pretty soon.
Oh, excellent.
So in draft 3, we have a complete implementation of the VCon library that's in GitHub.
Yep.
And I'm happy to announce in September, we're going to start talking about the conserver, which is actually a passion project for me. The conserver is a framework which is a lot like Asterisk or like FreeSwitch, but it goes next to it. And the job is to take the conversations out of an Asterisk or out of a FreeSwitch and then protect the conversations and serve them up into AI. So that you can use the conversations for business purposes. And so the service, we're going to start talking about that in September. We've run it in production since January. It's solid. It's running great.
Excellent.
I like to tell you about some of our great use cases.
Please.
That we didn't think about earlier. So Ken, want to talk about that for a second?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Please.
I'm really excited about the conserver because that's going to be important for TADHack.
Right, exactly. So the conserver, it basically turns, conversations into data, and what it does is it attaches to the APIs of like a Twilio or a Ringplan, or it records it from the network, creates the VCon out of it, and then puts that VCon into a data source that anything can use. So you can see it in Postgres or in Snowflake or in Slack, or fill up a Google Sheet with it. Now, our use case, and Vinny, my CEO, he has a great term for this. He calls it a barometer. Strawlid, again, sells cars. We're an inside sales organization. When someone clicks a car ad, we're the first people you talk to. Okay. And now when you talk to us, we're the people who are the face of the dealership. Thanks you for calling us. Can I help you? Do you know where the dealership is? Right. And we sit between the customer and our customer, which is the dealership. We service about 200 dealerships in the country. And so between the two, it's a really magic place to see the company from the customer's eyes. Right. So the customer and the company, they're talking to each other, and we record that, and we have the transcript. And from that transcript, you can derive a lot of information about the company. And you can derive a lot of information about how we're treating the customer. And so one of our first use cases is we're calling it the sentiment channel. And so what we do is we take VCons out of every conversation we have, and we give it to AI, and we say, was the customer upset or angry or frustrated? And if AI says, yes, the customer was angry, upset, or frustrated, we put that into a Slack channel saying, George called Will, and Will was upset because he thought oil changes should be $100, not $200. And we put that in a Slack channel. And so the people who run the teams and people who run the dealerships keep their eye on that Slack channel. We know within seconds when a customer has been badly treated. And it gives us an opportunity to rescue the conversation. We also know why they're upset. Were they upset because of pricing? We didn't have the car. Did we not answer the phone? Did they try to get through 3 times? There's a lot of reasons why people are upset. And some people are upset just coming to the phone. They start upset. We didn't do anything about that. They just started that way. But here's what it does for us. It gives us a stethoscope, a barometer to the dealership. It allows us to see problems that we could never see before because we couldn't see that interface. And so the ability to understand the internals of a company as viewed by the customers.
Yeah.
So it's basically we're listening to our customers. And the magic part, does it make sense so far?
Yep, absolutely.
Here's the magic part. The real power of AI is that it's scalable in a way that people are not. So I don't know where our call count is now. We're growing pretty quick, which is great. So we have 150,000 calls a month. There is no way anybody could listen to 150,000 calls. Just way too many.
Yeah.
But for an AI engine to listen to 150,000 calls is about 10 minutes worth of work.
Yep.
The VCon is a structured way to give that information to the AI safely and effectively so it can start listening to your customers for you.
Yeah.
And you start asking, what do you want to be listening for? And so Sentiment's the first one where I'm working on the no channel, which is when a customer asks a question and our agents don't know the answer.
Gotcha.
And so
Interesting.
yeah, so we're running a list of the no channel, like, oh, you didn't know that this? Okay, could you have known it? Let's.
Yeah. Great.
So,
I'll make a prediction. You'll get bought out by either Ford, Chevy, Mercedes-Benz, or BMW as soon as they figure out the power of the information that you guys are collecting and the overall experience. I mean, that's priceless information for the brand. I mean, the dealerships are just extensions of the brands and people that, buy dealerships. I know quite a few guys that own dealerships, and
no, it's really true.
They're really simple people that just want to sell cars and don't care how they do it.
But the brand, that's exactly right.
How they do it, the old movies, putting up different things in carnivals and here, kiss my wife and that type of stuff.
As I said, my whole life, even when I was in my first programming job in high school was at Raytheon at my father's group. And so my whole life has been in communications engineering. I've never been in the automotive market. And this is exactly true. They're wonderful people. They're entrepreneurs. They know how to sell. They want to keep their customers happy. It's a great, and I really, really enjoyed my time at Strolid just because of that, and so you're right.
The local car dealer is a big part of American lore. It's a big part of America, the substance, the very foundation of America.
Yeah, I can go into any town. Seriously, I can go to any town in America and find the entrepreneur they're running at the car store.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
We also have a lot of football players and a lot of athletes that they put their name on these things. I mean, they do anything they can. They do anything they can to get people in the door.
Yeah,
that's right.
Is what you're doing also going to be used for different verticals?
Yeah, so it's obviously appropriate to all kinds of verticals. And so when we came up with the VCon and the conserver, we really had a choice at Strolid whether or not we were going to go to every vertical and how we were going to do that. And Vinny and I decided, and I think it was a good choice actually, that we were going to take that last step and understand how it worked great for Strolid because it's a great sandbox and people don't do a great job at putting the dots together. So we've been really trying to use the VCon in so many ways and the conserver to process them to understand the operations of our business. And part of what we're doing in September is I'm writing a book. We're going to be putting together the use cases to say, this is why it worked. And we have a lot of them. And so I just told you about customer sentiment and operational efficiencies. We also use it for agent training. Yeah. So we're fast growing. So we have 12 agents a month now, probably more than that. And we so for the first month or so, we give them all training. We work really hard with them. Then we put them into the field. We take the VCons and we sample them to say, okay, are we still on script? Are we still doing the right thing? And we use AI to say, are we compliant to the scripts that we're giving the agents? And I'll tell you, by using AI, this is something else I've learned. There's the speed of the LLMs, the speed of how fast ChatGPT is running has made it such that I can take a VCon, just native, it's a JSON, it's not
Yep.
And I can give it to an LLM. Claude is what I'm thinking about.
Yep.
You give the LLM and you say, please write a thank you letter based on this conversation. And it does it right the first time. And
Yep.
there's no other software involved. It's just a VCon and Claude.
Yep.
No training, no, it's a zero shot. And Claude will say, dear Richard, thank you for visiting us last week for your oil change. We hope you had a great experience. It was also nice talking to you about your dog, Fluffy. If you ever need another oil change, make sure you come back and see us. We'd love to see you. Thank you, Thomas. Zero shot, first time. There's no, and so from just from an automation standpoint,
Yeah.
crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for the insights, we talked about customer sentiment, we talked about agent training. There's other really important business insights. Like for instance, you've had 100 inbound calls. Well, 80 of them were for that Acura TSX.
Yeah.
And you sold it after the second conversation. So you had 18 times people were calling for a car you didn't have.
Yeah.
That's the kind of IQ and insight that you could get if you had the data to know it. The VCons are the thing that is the actual thing that gives you the conversation to know.
Yeah. Because I look at this as, the Conserva, I mean, you can apply it across any vertical, but like Twilio at its event last week, I think it was, had a big push around applying AI across all their workflows. And I mean, they need the Conserva, full stop, because it enables those conversations to be managed compliantly. That's the critical
That's a big
piece.
part. Yeah, that's actually a huge part. So part of the VCon standard at the IATF for our charter is to be able to address the GDPR requirements of right to know, right to be forgotten. And so you can come to a company and say, you have the right to know what you know about me.
Yeah.
Well, if you've recorded me, not only do you have that recording, and you need, if I request right to know, you should give me my recording because you have that recording.
Yep.
I'll also point out that the GDPR identifies sensitive areas of information like medical records, is an example, DNA, also biometrics. And there's nothing more biometric about yourself than your face and your voice. I can change my name, but I can't change my face, much to the dismay of all of you. You guys got to deal with it, right? And because of that, you have, I think we're driving to a place where you either have to be listening to your customers compliantly or don't listen to them. Right? But there's a second thing too, which I think is really, really interesting. So today, and I think Twilio has this problem, I think it's a category error on their part. I think I can like point to all these guys, make the same category error. That they're very self-centered in their thinking about what they're doing. And so they are thinking that the AI is really tied to their conversations and their calls, but really it's around the customer voice. And so one of the things that we think is going to be really interesting for the Conserva is the breaking of the data silo. That they're siloing their data in the communications channel and not making it available to the other pieces of the organization. So one of the things that Conserva can do is redact the conversations so that you can take that VCon in a redacted form and give it to the marketing department and say, this is what customers are saying about your new product. Every time someone mentions the Ford Focus, I'm going to send that conversation to the product owner of Ford Focus so you can actually listen to the customers. Now, that guy who's the product manager of Ford Focus is nowhere near the contact center. At all. And so the Conserva breaks that data silo by being able to give that voice of the customer to whomever in the enterprise, supply chain guys, the QA guys, the marketing guys who need that information. And I think that's the other reason you need the Conserva. And that's why I think it's outside, basically, of Twilio. And one last thing, and I think it's just completely hilarious. So CDPs, like Segment, going back to Twilio for a second, are a great idea. But think of how ironic it is that we have all this information about people's customer journey, and I click this, and I open that, and I emailed this, and I called you, and we know everything until the customer opens their mouths. Then nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
What you said, I don't care what you said. I care what you clicked on, what you opened, but what you said, that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what that's like? And so when we come to mass personalization, right, that we're going to customize every marketing message to a customer, we're going to customize every interaction. It's a lot like going on a third date with a girl and not remembering what you said on the first two.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I have a good friend of mine who's I got to hook you up with him. It's a company called Brand Through. And exactly what you're doing, they do it for Fortune 500 companies. I got to introduce you to them, and it's exactly what you're talking about. The click through and all the data means absolutely nothing, and they're actually, showing people's emotions. How do they feel about things?
Yes.
They take what you guys do with AI, and they try to measure the person's emotions, and they got some really big customers. Brand Through, you should click on them. I'll actually introduce you to the two founders. Are staggering. I mean, one of them is she's she writes for Forbes every month. She interviews all the top CMOs.
Yeah.
Name's Billy for Forbes. Brilliant. Two people that are good friends of mine.
Yeah, let me be clear. I think another part, it's important part, and I think we at Strawlid are really behind this. And so I really am very happy, to represent, our team here. This is an open source project. We believe in open source. We believe in open standards. We believe that there's a lot of value to be created with open source, and we think it wins in the end. And so everything I'm talking about here, the conserver and the vcons are open. They're open source. Their source is available. We'd like you to take it and use it. And so we'd love that for the world. We think it's important.
Yeah.
And I know you're the CTO, but from a business standpoint, and I know you're very passionate about what you're talking about. It's really impressive. But where are you guys at in the cycle as far as capital raising? Are you self-funded, or you have?
It's a great question. Yeah, so Strawlid is closely held. We only have 4 shareholders, and I'm one of them.
That's great.
Yeah, and we've been in business for about 9 years, and we're profitable, and we're over 10 million in revenue now. So we've got a lot of. So no, you know what? It is a very cultural thing for us. We're north of Boston, very close to the university which I attended. Most of our agents are trying to make it in the world. They want to buy a house, they want to have a family, and we're a big family, and we love working with each other. So
So you're 10 million in revenue. How much revenue are you generating? It's got to be a sick amount.
Well, you know what,
for your customers.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. No, we're very valuable,
because that's really what matters, is what you're generating for your customers.
We are an important part of that. That revenue chain, and
do you measure that?
I was attracted there actually because it's really good for me we sell twice, right? We sell to the businesses that we sell for, and we sell their cars. So it's a B2C and a B2B play, and so our best thing is that we're known for our salespeople. We're actually fairly well known in the North American franchise auto market for being the best BDC in the country.
So you're kind of selling yourselves. You sell yourselves word of mouth, or do you have any competitors or that do exactly what you're doing?
Yeah, there's like a lot of little small competitors known at our scale. We're the biggest there.
So you're the biggest in your field.
America. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep. Yeah. And
incredible.
I'm not sure. I haven't quite calculated what our market share is in terms of new car sales, but it's not 10%. It's much less than that, but it's a very big market too.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But also, I think
the implosion of the Carvanas and the other companies, as we were talking before. I'm sorry, did I cut you off, Fallon?
No, it's okay. Go for it.
You're going to kick me off the show now. I'm my first and my last show with you.
He's like, how much editing do I have to do? That's what he's.
Yeah, Alan's like, oh, geez, this guy. No, I'm actually Alan. I was coming in cold and just read his bio this morning, and I'm fascinated, as you know, by business. I worked many years with Kevin Harrington, the inventor of the infomercial from Shark Tank. So I've looked at all kinds of products and worked with him on many projects. So when you hear something with 10 million in revenue, as unique as what you guys are doing, immediately you're thinking, wow, this is really crazy because you can scale this in different verticals. And then there's also an exit strategy. If I'm a brand, I'm buying you because I know once they understand that it's not about where you click, it's about what you say, what you feel, and that's what Brand Through does. I've been advising one of their co-founders for a couple of years, just on capital raise. They've been self-funded, just like you. They've got revenue, just like you. They're profitable, just like you. They're doing a lot of the things that you guys are doing. They're doing it a little bit differently and one more level down. But love to introduce you to them.
That'd be great. Yeah. And finally, I guess, Strala stands for people. One of the things that we talked about when we started this work was our AI isn't to replace people. Our AI is to make our people do a better job. We sell for a living. We don't think machines can sell. We don't think that's really appropriate. We think people need people when they're making big decisions. They need advice. They need empathy. They need to have trust. They need to understand what they're doing. And that's not something for a machine, something for a person. So, we are a people heavy company, and we're very proud of that because we think it's really important for the process, for the reputations of our customers.
How many salespeople do you have?
Well, 170, I think now.
So you have 170 people clicking 10 million a year in revenue? Pretty impressive. Real impressive.
Yeah.
Don't thank me. Thank your salespeople and your technology. I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Because the other thing I just wanted to highlight is the approach that Thomas has taken is all centered around the vertical and the process. So all the, like the Twilio's and the rest, they've taken a platform view of it, while Thomas has taken a distinctly different approach with the Conserva. The reason he's made it open source, the reason he's seen it as we need to get this insight, this data out in the relevant formats and compliant formats to the other pieces within the brand's organization. So it's quite distinctly unique because he's not trying to trap people onto a particular CPaaS platform. What he's trying to do is solve a business problem. So that's why I think what they've got is...
Well, he's a business. I mean,
yeah,
CPaaS is just a toolbox for developers at the end of the day. And they created a whole company with 10 million in revenue that's profitable.
Exactly.
How many CPaaS companies are profitable?
We're going to leave that for our
Give me
Truth in
one.
Telecoms discussions. But no, this has been excellent. I'm so happy, Thomas, Johnny, you were able to meet each other and have a chat and understand what's unique and really cool about what Thomas is building.
Well, I think that's the whole focus. What we're looking to do at TAD Summit and talking to some of the other organizations we're talking about is how do we bring capital to innovation?
Yeah.
So how do you bring, where I live here in New York, right down the street from Wall Street, how do you bring capital to innovation? Because when you bring innovation to capital, you're pulling your pants down and it's unfair. And there needs to be a FOMO situation created for companies like Thomas' company. He should have a line down the street, and hopefully he does at some point. Absolutely. Once the word gets out, because it's about one person telling another person.
Yeah,
so
that's it. Yeah. Nope, that's cool. Again, Johnny, Thomas, thank you so much for being on the first TAD Summit podcast. I hope future ones will be just as cool and even more controversial.